This video will take you into a day in my life of cooking meals from scratch for my family of 7. Cooking meals from scratch doesn't have to be daunting. With a good plan, dovetailing tasks, and time management, it can be a breeze. I hope this video will be an encouragement for you if your kitchen, like mine, is less than picture perfect. You might be dealing with clutter, toys from the kids in your kitchen, and just feeling discouraged about cooking. I hope this video helps you because I am in the exact same boat. My kitchen is in dire need of an update. I have chipped countertops. It's just not very photogenic. And of course, we are dealing with, clutter from the kids and just from life in general around. So I hope this helps you feel encouraged if you're in the same situation. In this video, we'll be covering my current routine of more structured meal planning and how it is helping me through a busy life season, my top trick for simple and easy lunch times with kids, how planning tasty meals is helping us to save money, how I budget time as a busy mom of 5 cooking meals for my family, and we'll talk about finding balance between health and meals that my family will love. So let's jump into it. If you've missed my previous video, my family is currently in the midst of a giant move back to our homeland of Manitoulin Island, which is 10 hours away from where we currently live. This is a huge step emotionally and logistically. Emotionally involves us having to say goodbye to our current home city of the past 7 years, and logistically, it involves packing everything up and getting our current home ready for sale, or as ready as it will ever be. Since a couple of months after my latest baby's birth, I have found that following a more structured meal plan is helpful for me, making sure that dinner or lunch doesn't get lost in the shuffle of everyday busyness. This is helping us save money because when I wasn't planning tasty meals, yes, dinner time still usually happened, but it wasn't necessarily the most exciting or tasty meals. A lot of scrambled eggs for dinner or repeat meals like barbecued burgers and sausages that my husband would make. As a result, we would be ordering food more, not necessarily because we were hungry, but simply because we were bored by our dinner and wanted something tastier. That being said, this will very soon not be an option for us as we are moving to a very rural area. Also, when I wasn't planning and basing my grocery order on a meal plan, we would end up doing a lot of midweek grocery shopping to fill gaps in our week because we hadn't put a lot of thought into our initial grocery shopping for the week. So this leads me to another point. In this meal you see me preparing now, Philly cheesesteak sandwiches, you'll see that store-bought Kaiser buns play a part. This is actually a big step for me towards balance in my cooking. I have been a big anti-bread person for a while, or at least anti-conventional bread, coming from a paleo-esque diet background. However, my family doesn't have to live by my standards, first of all. And second of all, although baking my own sourdough bread would be ideal health-wise, it just isn't realistic for me in this season to be making all of our bread products, or indeed any of them. And I have recently come to the sense that it is more important to cook tasty meals that everyone will love, healthy within reason, of course, even if it means buying store-bought conventional buns as a part of that, than to stick so strictly to certain diet principles that it makes getting yummy meals on the table so much more difficult in a season when I should be making things as easy on myself as possible. I hope that made sense. So we still don't eat a ton of conventional bread, but once or twice a week, yeah, it happens. Okay, so on to my top trick for tasty lunch times. You'll see me cooking a whole bunch of meat right now for this recipe. The reason I'm cooking so much is partly because I overestimated how much I should buy, but mainly because I actually usually aim to have enough leftovers from dinner to serve for lunch the next day. This has been huge for me because previously lunch was the biggest struggle. It seemed that once I got finished with the breakfast cleanup, I only had an hour or max 2 before it was time to start thinking about making lunch. I tried to get most of my computer or video editing work done in the morning times, so these two things were pretty incompatible. But this way, I can just pop dinner's leftovers in the oven to warm up in the midst of video editing, or currently packing boxes for a move, and we are good for lunch without any thought on my part. So another thing I'd like to talk about is budgeting time. Really, as any type of cook, but especially as a busy mom, this is so important. So first of all, there's the somewhat obvious tip of washing dishes and tidying up while you are waiting for things to finish cooking. This is such a simple way to save time because it's time you would be standing around in the kitchen anyways. But this concept of dovetailing tasks can apply in so many ways, and I'm really learning to do better in this, especially since my fifth child's birth. So this looks like, for example, fitting our family reading out loud time into time that I am already in the kitchen with my kids waiting for our breakfast to finish cooking. You'll see that in the next section. Or in terms of dinner time, I always try to think by mid-afternoon, is there something I could get cooking for dinner time at this point? This isn't always possible depending on what type of meal I'm preparing that night, but if I'm making something like pot roast or carnitas, for example, that requires meat to cook in the Instant Pot for a fair amount of time before the rest of the dinner prep can happen, then it just makes sense to get that going before moving on to whatever other tasks I was planning for the afternoon. Okay, so here we are having our dinner time now. So usually for my two younger kids, I will split one of these sandwiches in half, or if it's some other type of meal, they'll obviously have a smaller portion. So this makes having enough leftovers for lunch the next day easier because I'm not dealing with, 4 teenage boys or anything. These are 4 little boys, plus my youngest is just a baby at this point. Okay, so now it's time to make breakfast for the next day. So for this particular breakfast, I am making popovers. Now, just a word about breakfast, just so you don't get confused and think I'm somehow super mom, because I'm definitely not. I am only just starting to get back into making breakfast for my family after maybe like 2.5 years of having not made breakfast. My husband used to do that for the past 2.5 years. He would just, make cereal or toasted bagels or maybe eggs every once in a while just to save me the work. After our 4th child was born, he started doing that. But lately, I've been feeling inspired to make breakfast for my kids. I'm just finding it fun, and I do find that it usually saves money. I've been buying ingredients every week based on a meal plan that covers breakfasts and dinners. And I do find it saves money compared to buying the healthy organic sprouted bagels and organic cream cheese that we had previously been buying. So the first time I had popovers was actually when my French Canadian grandmother was staying for a visit with my family, and she made them because I guess these are more of a French Canadian thing. They are absolutely delicious. They are made with milk, flour, eggs, and melted butter. And so here you just see me blending all of those together with my much loved immersion blender. I really love investing in tools like this immersion blender that just makes cooking that much easier and more enjoyable. And now I'm just pulling out my muffin tins out of the oven. These already have the little pats of melted butter in them, and then I'm going to be pouring the batter into each of these. Now, a word about muffin pans. I am not a fan of non-stick cookware or bakeware generally, but I have not been able to find muffin pans that come without a non-stick coating. I have been able to find stainless steel like pizza pans and baking sheets and loaf pans, but not muffin pans. So if you know of any, then please leave a comment below. And while we're waiting for those to cook, I am doing some read aloud time with my kids. Noah's just pulling the cat away from the garbage bag because he was ripping into it to get the steak wrappers. And okay, now we're pulling out the popovers out of the oven. We are currently reading through The Hobbit, by the way, which I am really enjoying. I think it makes reading out loud to our kids so much more fun when we're working through a book that we ourselves like as well. So we eat a lot of meals just around our kitchen island, even though it technically is only supposed to seat 2, but my 2 younger boys pull up chairs at either end, and then my husband and I will often just stand at the far end there to eat. I just find it easier to have breakfasts and sometimes dinners in here, just because that way I'm not dirtying the kitchen and the dining room, I'm just dirtying the kitchen. These popovers were so delicious. We added butter and some honey on top. Okay, so now it's time to make lunch that same day. So we're just making the exact same meal that we made for dinner the previous night of those Philly cheesesteak sandwiches. So I have some extra buns that I'm just cutting open and toasting, and then I'm warming up the leftover meat and sauteed onions and things in the wok before putting them onto our toasted buns. And just adding some grated cheese on top of those before popping them in the oven for the cheese to melt. Now it is dinner time. So this is just a really easy dinner that is cooked on baking sheets. In my case, I'm using pizza pans. These are these really big pizza pans that I just like using for everything. They're stainless steel. So we're going to be roasting today some asparagus that a friend gave me from her garden, as well as some cubed potatoes that you already saw me cutting up, and some sliced onions. Baby wearing is such a lifesaver for me in order to get things done. My baby just happily naps on my back. Cutting up a large sweet onion now to roast. Just adding some olive oil to everything that I'm going to be roasting. I use olive oil or butter or sometimes even bacon fat for all of my cooking. I don't use vegetable oils at all. And just sprinkling that with some pink Himalayan salt. So now I'm just making room on my potato tray for the chicken thighs that I'm just putting on top of the potatoes on the tray. And then I'll be sprinkling them with the olive oil and the pink Himalayan salt, as well as some Italian seasoning afterwards. So let's just talk about cooking for a large family, because this is something I get asked about fairly frequently. And I'd just like to say that it's not really that hard because it was something that happened gradually. You know, like when my husband and I first got married, it was just the two of us. And then we added one child, and then two, and then three. And it happens one at a time where you just kind of gradually get an idea of how much you need to cook for your family. So it's not like you're just being launched straight away from only cooking to two people to suddenly cooking for seven. It happens gradually, and so you get used to it. But I will say that it helps that I grew up in a family of seven, and I did a lot of the cooking by the time I was a teenager. So by the time I got married to my husband, it was actually a big adjustment to have to go from cooking for seven people to suddenly only cooking for two. I remember one of the first meals I made for us, it was beef stew, and we had leftovers from that for like over a week until I had to just throw it out because I just made way too much for us two. So yeah, funny story. But yeah, it's not really rocket science cooking for so many people. It's just something you get used to. And yes, this is my cameraman, by the way, Noah, my oldest, who is 9. He did basically all of the filming for this entire video, so major props to him. So he got a taste test. And that's what this meal looks like when it's finished. Just really easy comfort food. Roasted chicken thighs, potatoes, asparagus, and sweet onion. And I have been really enjoying eating outside on our deck lately because it just minimizes the mess inside. Okay everyone, I really hope you enjoyed this video and that you learned some helpful tips for cooking meals, whether it's just one person you're cooking for or 7 like me. I hope you found this helpful. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, like the video, and comment with any video suggestions. See you all in the next one.